What's up everyone, John from ARTV, continuing with my reviewing of every Green Day album leading up to the release of Revolution Radio on October 7th. Today I'm reviewing Insomniac, the band's fourth studio album released in 1995. This was a bolder move for the band at the time because it wasn't as commercially viable, there weren't as many hit singles on this thing, and they moved in a little bit more of an angry direction, something that was punkier, rockier in a way, something influenced by other bands in the Bay Area, and it saw them moving less in the pop direction and more in the rock direction. And after selling so many copies of their last record, Dookie, that we talked about last week, yeah, it was an unprecedented move, and I'm honestly sure that the record label was a little bit concerned. But thank God they did what they did, because this is one of the most underrated albums in their discography. Insomniac was kind of looked over by some critics and fans. They don't hate it, but I feel like there's not a lot of people out there that love it, although I have seen more and more love for it over time. And I'm not going to sit here and call this one of my absolute favorite Green Day albums, but I have to say there's a ton of good songs on here, and we're going to kind of dive into why this album works so well. On Insomniac, the bass playing got more nuanced, the lyrical content got more angry, and also more contradicting all throughout this record. Obviously, it closes out with Walking Contradiction, but really all throughout, Billie Joe Armstrong has made a name for himself off of just kind of questioning things, playing off of oxymorons, idioms, and all of these other devices and outlets he uses to get his creativity across. And while not all these songs on this record are necessarily just mind-bending in the lyrical department, that's not true at all, they're definitely fun and thought-provoking for a little punk band that just grew into something so much more. This is one of Green Day's shortest albums, clocking in at just 32 minutes. There's 14 songs, so you know that they go fast. I don't think there's a song on this thing over about 3 minutes long, and that's saying something because Green Day, obviously with time, have made longer and longer tracks. Now they're kind of all over the place, and it honestly surprises me these days whenever I do see the shorter songs. The title track from Revolution Radio is out there in the world now, and I actually did do a track review if you're interested. It is linked in the description down below. I'll put my Bang Bang review down there as well, but that was one that was just over 3 minutes, and I was kind of like, wow, Green Day kind of getting back to basics here and just really knocking one out. I'm okay with that. I made mention of the lyrical content being a little bit angrier this time around, and we definitely see that popping up on some of these tracks, like 86, talking about getting 86'd or else cut, that being the technical term for what 86 means, from playing Gilman, and that's referenced several times on this record. Billie Joe and the rest of the band didn't take too kindly to that. Just for signing to a major label, they're sellouts and they can't play their home club anymore. That made no sense to him, and he really references that several times throughout their career in my review of Nimrod, though next week we'll get into that even more. Panic Song is a fantastic cut that really just lets us into Billie Joe's mind a little bit more. Actually, Mike Dirnt, the bassist, actually co-wrote this track because they both used to have panic attacks, really struggled with that, and you see the tension just mounting in this track. The bass riff that starts this thing off, and then the guitars kind of colliding and the drums just all over the place, and that's trying to create kind of that atmosphere of the mind, what they go through whenever they have these panic attacks. And the lyrics finally cut in about halfway and just kind of detail what's going on, feeling like their world's falling apart, like they don't even want to be in the world anymore. It's kind of heartbreaking in a way to really just see that play out. Now, these are not the only themes that we're finding here. Obviously, we've got stuff about relationships. We see Westbound Sign, a track about his now wife, Adrian, moving from California to Minnesota to be with Billie Joe, and she was having a lot of trouble with it at the time. She had panic attacks, she had things that were happening to her, insecurities, things that made her maybe not want to come out there, but knowing that their love was strong, they had this connection for a reason, and that they would help each other. But why would they need help, you might ask? Well, that's another one of the topics covered on this record. Meth use is a huge thing. Drugs in general, just kind of that rock and roll party lifestyle, and we see a huge single on this thing. Actually, two relatively successful singles that both deal with meth use. That's crazy. Like, how many songs in the mainstream are about meth that actually get played on the radio still to this day? Brain Stew is the primary one that I'm talking about. Just Billie Joe's cycle that he was going through. Maybe not necessarily just him, but obviously the people that he saw in his life as well. He got clean, thank God. Meth will ruin you, it will kill you, it will make your teeth fall out, and it will make you do terrible things. And thank God that he and the rest of the band members just got clean from all of the shit they were doing in the 90s. But at this time, Brain Stew was talking about the insomnia, hence the title of this record, suffered because of like meth use and then trying to use pills to kind of counterbalance that and make yourself just pass out and forget the world. It wasn't working. You're getting more and more hooked. You're lured into this world. It's a trap and you cannot get out. You're suffocating. And there's another song on this record that really deals with that meth use quite heavily as well, and that's Geek, Stink Breath. This is a track that just directly straight up says methamphetamine, and I'm just like, yeah. You know, I never noticed that one whenever I was like in my mid-teenage years just rocking out to Geek Stink Breath. Oh, this is one of my favorite Green Day songs. Who knew a song this upbeat was about a destructive lifestyle? But it's still so much fun. I love the blast of guitars on this track. It's a punky one. It's just over 2 minutes. It goes in fast. That riff will get stuck in your head for days. I love the bass groove on this one as well. And I have to compliment Mike Dirnt once again, coming through with some killer bass riffs on this thing. Stuck with Me is one that really stood out as well. Brat, and even parts of like Bob's Uvula, Who, and 86. Panic Song obviously being fantastic because he really gets to showcase it there, but really all throughout this record he shows that off and just how talented he is. And it's mind-bending to me that he's still like taking bass lessons to this day trying to improve his playing. That's dedication to your craft right there. Even though this record doesn't stand out to me quite as much as many of their other releases, I feel like I really enjoy the varied lyrical content on this. I like that on like Stewart and the Avenue, they're talking about a breakup, and then they go from that to Babs Uvula Who, which is based off of the title at least, an SNL sketch with Chevy Chase in the 1970s. That was really cool, and they basically play off of the whole thing like, oh, I'm so pissed off, I'm so wound up, I get myself so wound up, and I get myself so angry, and it's just a play off of that the entire song, and you don't really think about it until you sit down and actually process the lyrical content on it. And then you've got a track like Brat, which is a blast, but it's talking about waiting for a parent to die so you can collect that money. You're ready for him to die because you just moved out and you don't know how you're going to make it in the world, so you're considering all of your options and you're like, huh, you know, maybe mom and dad will die someday and I can collect that inheritance. They're starting to get old, aren't they? And I don't know why. It's so twisted in a way, but I have so much fun with it. And then obviously drug use on Geek Stink Breath, and then I already talked about Brain Stew in pretty much detail. Panic Song, dealing with all the anxiety there, and then there's so many, I don't know, there's a lot of variety here in the lyrical department. This might not be my favorite record in terms of like the instrumentals. They don't stand out to me as much on that level. They maybe like blend together here and there for me, and there's some tracks that are just a bit repetitive for me, like, I don't know, Stewart and the Avenue at points. Westbound Sign is a little bit repetitive, and then definitely 86. Just the refrain, the hook on that thing just gets a little bit irritating to me, especially after all this time. But even though these things don't pop quite as much, there's so much here that works, and I think that, like I said, this is one of Green Day's most underrated albums. All the way from that intro track to the closing songs, Tightwad Hill and Walking Contradiction. Just track number 13, Tightwad Hill, kind of talking about all the burnouts in the town, being one of their most underrated tracks right there. I'll probably talk about that in an upcoming episode of 7 on Sunday for underrated Green Day songs. And then Walking Contradictions, one of their best singles that seemed to be kind of a sleeper hit, but in a way, still I feel like a ton of people don't know about it. Just a killer song that is all full of contradictions. I talked about him doing that at places on this record, but he does it all throughout this song, and it's fantastic. Guys, give this album a listen. I know that I may be undersold it in parts, but everybody hears it differently, and that's the beauty of music, and of course Green Day's music in particular. My favorite band. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. For me, I'm going with a 4.5, maybe just a solid 4 for Insomniac. Thanks so much for showing the Green Day reviews love, guys. Don't forget to smash that like button to let me know that you're enjoying them and that you want them to keep coming, and subscribe to the channel because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. I've got a lot of reviews on the way. Don't forget to check out my Green Day playlist. It's linked down below. It's got the track reviews I talked about and, of course, the Green Day reviews that I have already done. Thanks so much for watching. You can see the last week's review or another review that I recently did on this channel by clicking the annotations directly below me. You can find all of my social media like Twitter and Instagram down there as well. Other than that, I will see you guys very soon right here on ARTV. I mentioned the lyrical content being I made mention of the lyrical content being a little bit angrier this time I made mention of the lyrical content being a little bit angrier this time around, and we definitely see that popping up on some of these tracks like 86.